To the war right now, and specifically something that you know an awful lot about, and that is cyber attacks. We've been asking the question this morning, what happens if Russia launches a significant cyber attack on any of our NATO allies or on the United States itself? What's our response?
I once gave congressional testimony on this, whether and when a cyber attack can constitute an act of war. Basically, most of the legal analysis suggests that if a cyber attack causes large-scale physical damage or loss of life, like a kinetic attack, it can be considered an act of war, which makes an act of war-like response proportionate but not necessarily in kind appropriate, and could trigger our obligations under NATO. It's important to remember that on a regular basis, there are cyber attacks in this country from Russian platforms of a smaller scale. So we have to be vigilant, and the president was right to put out the statement yesterday about raising our defenses, being prepared, even though there's no specific credible threat right now. It's important to try to anticipate the possibility of that.
The president's getting ready, of course, to go to Europe, meet with NATO leaders, go to Poland. How do you assess the situation? Most strategists say what Russia wants is Ukraine. And yet I still feel there's a constant sort of triggering or poking at the U.S. to see how far they can go. Yeah. Like how many atrocities they can commit, you know, before the United States is finally pulled in. Do you see it that way?
Well, you were talking earlier about red lines, and you made the point, well, haven't they already crossed the red line by targeting civilians? I mean, how much worse can it get than targeting a structure with the words children on the structure? And so this administration is being tested right now in terms of how far we will go. And the more images we see of civilian casualties, civilian deaths, pregnant women dying, the political pressure is going to increase to do more and more. I think the Biden administration has been very disciplined in how they approach this, very methodical, very careful. But we're in a situation that inch by inch could lead us to a direct military confrontation with Russia, something we avoided all through the Cold War. I predict that we're going to begin to see cracks in the Russian government in these peace talks. My instinct is that those engaged in the talks are probably more anxious for a deal than Vladimir Putin is, and may reach for something that he doesn't approve. So that's how that plays out, I think, will be very interesting.
Willie's in New York.
Secretary Johnson, good morning. It's good to see you. I want to go back quickly to cyber attacks because of your expertise in that area. We're kind of talking shorthand about that. President Biden yesterday warned CEOs in the private sector to harden their defenses inside their own companies. We just heard from Admiral Kirby saying the Pentagon is doing the same, hasn't seen any breaches there. But what would an effective cyber attack look like from Russia's perspective on the United States? And then what does the counter look like? We don't talk about that much. What is the United States capable of? We've heard the United States can turn off the flow of oil. We've heard that the United States can turn off the lights in Moscow. What does a cyber attack and a response look like?
Well, first, there is the possibility of implanting malware in critical infrastructure. And once malware is implanted, it could be activated on a moment's notice. And that's something to be very concerned about, to be very vigilant when it comes to our critical infrastructure. The type of cyber attack that could warrant a cyber attack in response from our government is one that causes large-scale destruction of some sort, a physical death, possibly a loss of life, and a response should be proportionate, but it doesn't necessarily need to be in kind. In other words, under international principles, under law of war concepts, if a cyber attack causes large-scale destruction, we can and should respond in a proportionate way, but it doesn't necessarily need to be a cyber attack itself.
Hey, thanks so much for watching our YouTube channel. You can follow up on today's top stories and breaking news, or catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.